on the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, Allie Spooner and moi, Annette Mori.
Hi, I'm Allie Spooner, and I write with Affinity Rainbow Publications. And I think I'm coming up on 50 so far. So I touch on a bunch of different genres, from romance to paranormal. I have numerous series, and lately I've tried to focus more on teaching myself how to write short stories and standalone books. Not doing very well. My cowgirls are just driving me nuts right now, so I'm working on some new cowgirl books. Um, we hope you enjoy our podcast and have an opportunity to meet some authors that are new to you or learn more about the ones that are your favorites. We appreciate your support and invite you to visit Affinity Rainbow Publications to check out our books.
Thank you, Allie. And I'm Annette, and I won't say too much because hopefully those of you who have seen our podcast already know everything you want to know about me. I don't have nearly as many books as Allie. I'm not even on 40 yet, but I'm coming close, coming close. And same thing, I write just about everything: paranormal, mystery, contemporary romance, even historical. We even took a shot at that. And I'm also with Affinity Rainbow Publications, so I do hope you check us out.
Okay. So each month we invite a special guest or guest to join us as we discuss various topics of interest to writers and readers. We'll invite our guests to do a short reading and then follow with questions and answers on the featured topic.
And this month we'll be talking about sapphic time travel. I'm so excited about this. It's a special kind of speculative fiction. We're very excited to have our special guest, who is a very prolific, I mean, really prolific writer, Kelly J. And I'm gonna botch the pronunciation of your name, Kelly, so you can correct me. But Kelly J. Bailey, is that
Bailey.
close?
Bailey.
Bailey. So just very simple. Okay. Kelly J. Bailey. Join us today to talk about her time travel novel, Pitfall, as well as perhaps some other speculative fiction novels, including Somewhere Else and Quintessence. I'll also give you a taste of my new time travel novel, A Moment in Time, which was just released on April 1st.
All right. So following our podcast, we'll upload to a newly created YouTube channel and hope you consider subscribing so you never miss a future podcast.
Yes, and I have the absolute pleasure and honor of introducing Kelly. Even after 66 books, Kelly always tries to write the sort of material she would want to read. Her favorite thing to do is to take a common trope and turn it on its ear. Where you expect a zig, she gives you a zag. Kelly writes femfic, feminist fiction, and so in those pages you will find strong female characters, none of the damsel in distress marmalade. Ethical dilemmas and realistic storylines often filled with adventure and intense pacing, tempered by witty dialogue and happy endings. All are hallmarks of her work. Kelly is an indie publisher and author handling all aspects of the writing and publishing process. All 41 of her novels have been bestsellers in the genres of science fiction, speculative, apocalyptic, domestic thriller, domestic suspense, adventure, romantic suspense, lesbian fiction, and lesbian romance. She also writes nonfiction, but only sporadically because it takes time away from the fiction. And because no one wants to read nonfiction unless you're someone with a host of letters behind your name, a celebrity, an athlete, a politician, or an alien who's just landed on the planet. Kelly is many things, chief among them a neurodivergent, autodidact, nature lover, introvert, secular humanist, equalist, feminist, artist, and a former singer-songwriter who performed for 7 years in a chick band. She lives with her wife, Melissa, a budding author in her own right, and their rescued fur babies. They make their home on 10 acres of utopian Michigan Northwoods with an honest to gosh apple tree and a giant spruce tree named, of course, Sprucilla in their backyard. I love that. I love that bio, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. We need a picture of Sprucilla in the background.
Oh, yes. I would love a picture of Sprucilla. You should
I
send it
can
to
get
me.
you one.
Okay, send it to me and I'll put it on the thumbnail on the YouTube.
All
Okay.
right, there you go. All right, so without further ado, Kelly, if you're ready, take us away.
Okay. First, thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much. And also thanks for not scheduling me on April Fool's Day. Okay, so small excerpt from Pitfall. This is a portion of the first chapter named Highfalutin Fossil Goddess. Make sure I can see what I'm doing here. Okay. I was on my way to the stairs when I thought about the sundial. Drawn back into the room as much for the artifact as to catch another glimpse of the ultra-sexy professor, I strolled into the main room of the basement again. The doctor was gone, but the weird brass sundial was still lying there. Unable to resist, I moved over to it for one last look before going home for the night. I wouldn't be going out again this evening. I'd be watching TV. I had several episodes of Survivor Man on my DVR. Probably what I should have done last night, too, instead of pursuing the professor. Pausing, I hovered over the brass dials of the artifact. Concentric circles, she'd said. I saw now that meant circles inside circles. Different numbers along the, what was that called? Perimeter? Like labels. Anyway, it looked like some kind of steampunk gadget. Maybe Dr. Hill's coworkers really were shining her on. Or maybe it was an ancient device, like maybe something an alien left behind. Maybe an alien astronaut, like in those shows on TV. I wondered how old this thing really was. Dr. Don't Touch It was right. There were an awful lot of dials and numbers on it for something that had been dug out of the ground next to dinosaur bones. I glanced over my shoulder for any sign of her. She must have needed a potty break. She got so excited about the steampunk sundial, she nearly peed on herself. My eyes back on the object, I set my backpack down and wiped my fingertips on a clean spot at the bottom of my khaki shirt before gingerly placing 2 fingers on the outermost dial. I felt it turn a little, so continued to the left until it clicked into a slot that had some letters and numbers over it. Then I turned the next dial to the right. Same with a few others as well. I liked the clicking sound it made, like the sound of a ratchet. But nothing happened. No cuckoo came out, no AM talk radio, no gophers that needed bashing with an oversized sledgehammer. In a sudden whirling dervish of shouting and hands upon me, Dr. Hill was there, her voice high-pitched. I told you not to touch it! In her blue rubber gloves, with her pinned-up hair falling down on one side and the crazy gleam in her eyes, she looked like a mad scientist about to perform surgery on me, without permission, or anesthetic. Had this been any other situation, I might have enjoyed the presence of the professor's body within kissing distance, again, but anger was generally not the emotion I wanted women to have when they were that close to me. I took a step back, stumbling on the backpack, my foot tangling in the strap. I reached back for balance, my fingers landing, unfortunately, on the brass sundial gadget, right on top of the center, where the weight of my hand pressed that section down like a large panic button. Another clicking sound. Dr. Hill shrieked like a banshee. You touched it again! As I snatched my hand away from the brass dials, I said, if you weren't all up in my grill, I wouldn't have touched it again. I lost my balance. But when we both noticed the clicking and humming sound, it was coming from the artifact. Somehow, I had animated it. I smiled as I turned to look down at it and the professor beside me, managing to make her eyes look both bulbous and scrunched up. There, see, I got it to work. You're welcome. The professor grabbed my arm like she was going to jerk me away from the precious metal object. A searing brightness and a column of swirling lights encircled and enveloped us. A whooshing sound, a sucking, and I was a dust bunny on its way into a high-powered vacuum. Then I was compressed, crushed, and everything went dark.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. That was
Yeah, me
great.
too.
I've read
Yeah.
this book and I got to tell you, I loved it. And I love the two main characters. They are just so adorable together and really endearing. The custodian one though is by far my favorite. She's just
Yeah,
adorable.
yeah, I
Thank
All
get
you.
that
right.
a lot. But they like Jonna. Veronica's
All
all up in her head all the time, so
Do you want to tell
right.
them
Okay.
where they went to in this little time, or do you want to wait to get into that a little bit later?
well, they end up in the Jurassic period.
Yes.
Fun.
Which which makes it all that
Interesting.
much more entertaining, really.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
fun
Thank you,
for
All
Kelly.
me.
right, ladies, you ready for some questions?
Sure.
Do you want me to do my reading first, Allie?
Gosh. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's
Go
okay.
for
That's
it.
okay. I'm just excited about time travel novels, and that's why I had to write one. So I'm going to do a really quick reading when the two main characters in my novel, A Moment in Time, when they first meet. And one is Saren, and she's this big badass time enforcing agent, and the other is Avery, who is the scientist who will invent a way for procreation without sperm. So, self-fertilizing ova and also ova that can be spliced together. So this is when they first meet.
Awesome.
Scurrying to the room containing a wall of monitors covering every inch of the perimeter of their hidden compound, Avery caught movement in one and watched in fascination as an unknown woman cautiously stepped through the forest, occasionally squatting to poke around in the dense foliage. She stepped over the first tripwire. Her straight, nearly black hair framed a strong jawline and prominent cheekbones. The woman was a modern day Amazon. What the hell? Avery whispered. Avery allowed herself to feel a couple of things at once: panic that someone was poking around, and grudging respect for the stranger's ability to find their traps. Movement in another monitor caught her attention as the woman turned her head toward the man approaching her. Avery held her breath as the Amazon quickly moved to a section of the forest, providing greater cover while adeptly avoiding the traps. The man, who looked a bit like a grizzly bear, was not as delicate in his approach and tripped one of the wires. Avery grimaced when the explosion hit. Usually, the traps were not enough to kill someone, but they would give their enemies something to consider before attempting to cause the woman harm. The strange woman grinned and made her way quickly to the man. Avery couldn't read lips, but she didn't need any particular skill to understand that the interaction between the two was not polite or respectful. A strange weapon in the woman's hand was pointed at his head. The man was surprisingly agile and rolled away while grabbing a similar weapon. Her movement was almost too fast for Avery to catch before a blast of bright light passed inches from her body, and her answering fire caused the man to vaporize before Avery's eyes. Wide-eyed, Avery exclaimed, "Holy shit!" Avery didn't need to be a lip reader to recognize the expletive from the woman who swiveled her head looking for what, Avery had no clue. Without thinking, Avery deactivated the traps and activated the mechanism to unlock the hatch for the underground tunnel. Hurrying to the ladder, she climbed quickly to the opening and pushed against the camouflage door. She probably looked like a groundhog popping her head above the forest floor as she called out, "Over here, hurry!" The woman squinted in her direction and yelled, "Get back down in that hole right now!" The sureness in her voice and commanding presence had Avery following her orders as if she were a subordinate in the military, following an edict. Breathing heavily, she pulled the hatch shut and waited. Damn it all to hell. If the traditionalists didn't know the entrance to the hideout location before, they knew it now. By Saren's count, there were 3 additional men on the hunt. Certainly, it was a long shot for her to simply remove the first wave of opposition. They would definitely send more until the ministry, in collaboration with the World Council, finally took appropriate action against the traditionalist colonies. The wheels of justice, when powered by diplomacy, took a bit longer than advisable in Saren's humble opinion. All right, I'm going to skip a little bit till where they actually talk to each other. Avery stood on one of the ladder rungs built into the solid wall of rock and clay, blinking in the dim light. Who the hell are you? Please tell me there's another entrance, Saren replied. Why? Because we need to make this one inaccessible, and we don't have much time to do it. May I? Saren gestured to the open tunnel. I'd really rather not have my ass vaporized. Avery began a slow descent, leaving enough room for Saren to start her journey into the hole after shutting the hatch. Saren met Avery's inquisitive gaze as she reached the bottom. Good, she's not panicking. There was nothing worse than a hysterical woman. I'm afraid I didn't do much research on explosives available during this time period. Any chance you have dynamite or something else to blow this entrance? Saren inquired. Avery quirked an eyebrow. We have explosives, yes, but I'm going to need a full explanation before we do anything so crazy as to what you're suggesting. Look, I know you believe you're protected with your little booby traps, but I'm telling you, the men sent to take you out have already regrouped, and they have no compunction against using technology to identify and eliminate those obstacles. You're going to have to abandon this lab. Sarah knew she was being particularly harsh, but she'd lost any softness over the last 10 years and couldn't flip a switch no matter how much Avery threatened to unravel her emotions. Are you out of your mind? Do you have any idea how much is invested in my research? Not to mention a safe space for over 25 women. We're not giving that up. Let them send their knuckle-dragging assholes. We are well equipped to protect ourselves. Avery glared at Saren and folded her arms across her chest. So much like those in her lineage, Saren thought. I don't think you comprehend the situation, Saren patiently explained. Those men are not of your time. They will possess advanced technology that is beyond comprehension. I don't mean to be rude, but you are no match for them. Saren flinched. That was rude, she recognized. Avery roamed up and down Saren's body. And little old you are a match? Yes, I am, Saren insisted. I'm trained for these missions. Figures. You have a military presence. Thanks, but no thanks. The military is not our friend. All they want is the ability to use our research for less than noble causes. I told General Thompson I have no intention of helping them create a super soldier. He probably thinks that sending one measly woman is going to change my mind. Although, ordering an attractive lesbian to convince me was a nice touch.
Okay,
All
now
right.
I get it.
So that's my little time travel now. All right, now we can get into the fun questioning.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so used to us, doing guest
I know, that's
readings.
okay.
It's like, duh. All right. So, Kelly, we are so excited that you decided to join us today. And we want you to feel comfortable in sharing your inspirations for Pitfall. And then, Annette, how about you? What made you write A Moment in Time?
All right, let's let
So,
Kelly go
Kelly, you want to
first.
take it off? Yeah.
What was my inspiration for Pitfall? Well, I, like a lot of people I was watching when Jurassic Park first came out, I kind of fell in love with it. And I thought, I mean, wouldn't it be fun to write something about dinosaurs? So I think that's probably where the inspiration came from. The problem with it was, okay, if you're going to use dinosaurs, you got to put humans in there. And the only way to put humans in there is like either the way they did it in Jurassic Park, which was resurrecting them, or time travel. And so I hadn't intended for it to have time travel in the story, but of course, how else was I going to do it? So So Jurassic Park inspired that, and I wanted to. Um, uh, the other thing was that I noticed there was some scientific mistakes in Jurassic Park, and I'm like, well, I write fact-based fiction, so I've got to make sure that stuff is right. So I wanted to write something that had the science right, but also told a story about dinosaurs. So that's basically the inspiration for that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you either know all that about the dinosaurs, or did you have to do a whole bunch of research on that?
Ooh, I had to do lots of research.
Yeah.
I had about well, when you get the idea and you think it'll be like this and this is what's going to happen and it'll be simple. And then um, I realized that I was going to have, uh, you have to research what you're doing. So I thought it's going to be like that tagline. What was my tagline? Lesbians, dinosaur, time travel, fun. And I thought that's how it's going to be. And may be fun after it's done, but I had like 1,000 pages of research. And of course, I only used about 20% of it. But uh, yeah, I had to do a lot of research. So I
Were
wanted
you
to,
as tickled as I was when they finally brought a lesbian character into the Jurassic series?
oh, I don't know if I saw that one. Have I
It-
lost track of how
Yeah, it
many
was,
there are now?
I
yeah,
didn't
I
know
think
that
it was,
either. Was
yeah.
it
Oh,
which one was it? I'm gonna have to go and watch that one now.
If it wasn't the very last one, it was the one before that.
Oh,
She was a pilot.
oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I think I did see that one. Oh my gosh, it's
Yeah,
been a while ago.
yeah,
Oh, well, of course, we
yeah.
are
She
always
was,
excited when they bring in a lesbian character.
yes.
yeah, she was a
I
great
wanted to,
character.
I wanted to warn you guys though that my brain thinks everything's connected, and so it's easy for me to go off on a tangent. So I might start talking and and get partway into my answer and go, "What was the question again?" But
That's okay.
anyway, that's
Tangents are
my
our
brain.
stick. I mean, if you didn't already know, I said I'm the queen of tangents. I'm
Yeah,
terrible at it.
Yeah, so I was like,
yeah.
wait a minute, where was I going with that?
Speaking of going off on a tangent, how did you know that? I mean, I didn't know that it was factually inaccurate, or
Yeah.
scientifically inaccurate. How did you know that about Jurassic Park?
Well, I didn't initially. Of course, like everybody else, I'm like, oh, cool, and everything's wonderful. And but then you have to put nose to the grindstone and do some research. And I was like, oh man, there were no T-Rexes or Velociraptors in the Jurassic.
Oh,
Oh,
They
wow.
show
Hmm.
they show them out of time. It's like they say Jurassic, but they weren't there at the Jurassic. I believe the T-Rexes didn't come in until like right before the Cretaceous or something, if I
oh,
remember.
wow.
It's been a while since I looked at the research, but I was like, okay, so I can't put these in there just because they're obligatory and everyone likes big T-Rex and that's what they
Right.
think of. And so I had to use the ones that existed. And there was Velociraptor types, but there were several in the movie that weren't from that time period. So I
Wow.
was like, okay, well, I don't want to make that mistake. There were several things I couldn't even probably remember what they all were, but I was a little surprised. I was like, well, they have professional writers and researchers, but then, it's the movies
It's
and
Hollywood. Yeah. I mean,
you have
yeah.
to
Yeah.
do certain things for the story. But I'm really bad about, I don't know if it's bad or good. I don't want anything not factual in
Huh.
my
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
I want it all to be fact-based fiction. And sometimes that makes things really hard because you're
Yeah.
like, oh, I can't just invent that because that's not, anyway.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm not quite as good because I figure if I'm going to write a futuristic time travel novel, I'm going to play I'm going to like it's fiction. I'm going to make up what shit is possible in the 26th century.
Well, it's different for
Yeah.
speculative.
Yeah.
Speculative fiction,
Yeah.
it's like you're usually dealing with things that we don't know for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're guessing. So yeah, that's what I really liked about I like that about speculative fiction. I liked
Yeah.
it about had that same issue in that you're talking about in New Harbor Witches. I'm like, I would get stuck on something, and it's like, how am I going to get them out of this? And I'm like, oh wait, magic. It occurred to
Magic,
me,
right?
I didn't have to be fact based because
Right.
there weren't real facts there.
Yeah.
You were making it up, and it's an alternate world, so,
Right.
or an alternate reality, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the good thing about speculative fiction. You don't have to follow the other rules
Yeah.
because a lot of it's made up. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so I'll let you know what inspired me to write. Well, I've always loved the Terminator. The first movie I thought was the best, and the reason why I thought it was the
Yeah.
best was it really made me think because for those who, the whole concept of the chicken or the egg, and then I deal with that in my novel because, of course, the scientist Avery says, of course, the chicken came first because, the chicken's been around since prehistoric times, right?
Same conversation.
Right. Yeah. So, so I did research on that. But for me, the whole concept of the fact that this guy came back to protect this woman, and then they end up having the baby that is the future leader. And if he hadn't come back, so which came first? Did the fact that he came back in time affect the time? All of that is just so fascinating to me. So,
No,
so there was
it's
that.
complicated.
It just makes your head spin. You go, so I thought I'm going to write
Yeah.
something that's a little similar, putting those concepts into place in terms of, affecting the time, how would you dramatically affect a timeline? Or why would you go back in time to protect one person? Well, if one person comes up with the science to have, have women be able to procreate, and maybe there's genetic modification in this, in the sense that these new women out of these self-fertilized eggs are more brilliant and whatever, then you have future scientists who save people because they find a cure for cancer, and they
Yeah.
all of these other things that might have an impact on millions of people. So if this person goes away with their science, then you have all these ancestors who also go away. They're never born. And if they're
Right.
never born, then what happens? So so that concept. And then the other thing was the other movie that I really love is Somewhere in Time, which is
Yeah.
the love story. And so sort of combining those two concepts of, creating this beautiful love story along with this whole thinking about how time and the timeline can be so dramatically impacted if just one influential person in history goes away. So, anyways, that was my
It's
thoughts.
so complex, the time travel stuff. I just, like I said, I had intended to use it. It's just that it needed that mechanism, But once you start getting into it and kind of refreshing your memory on what you've known and not known about what they say about
Yeah,
time travel, it's like you're researching stuff that's speculative right there, so you
yeah,
don't know for sure what's factual, but it's the whole willing suspension of disbelief. It's like you have to at least base it enough on fact that anything you extrapolate makes sense. So you don't
All right.
uh well, so they can suspend their disbelief and be in the story and read your story without being
yeah,
distracted by that. But that whole complexity aspect of time travel, like in Pitfall, 150 million years back in the past, um, and one of the characters, wants to go home, but it's like to the future because in their present it's the past, but to get back to their past, which would be their current, you know you start doing that, and it's like, oh my god, my brain is breaking, wait a minute. And I had to do charts and diagrams, and it's
right.
to keep track of it because it's like I'd go through on the edits and I'd find, I think I had everything fixed with that, and I'd go through and go, wait a minute, that's not right.
Yeah,
It
it does.
became so complicated.
It does get complicated. And I thought it was interesting how you had the characters move through the timeline
Yeah,
several times
I
to
know that's even
correct
the first.
things that happened so that they wouldn't happen. I thought that was a very interesting way, and I struggled with that concept too of, well, what would stop these people from coming back time and time and time and time again? You can correct the timeline, you can protect the person, but then what happens if they decide to go back for her parents or, and all of that? It's interesting. When I initially decided to write this time travel novel, I was under the impression that there wasn't much out there, but I was wrong. After doing some research, I found that there were quite a few other books, but it still isn't quite a subgenre that many of the top-selling authors choose to write in. Do you have any thoughts about why this isn't I thought it was really fun to do. Why more people don't write time travel novels? Especially the biggies.
Well, I think in the context, well, if you're talking about women writers, some of that it's honestly it's a male dominated area, and that's part of the patriarchal society that we're living in. I mean, that's just, I don't want to go on to a political rant or anything, but that's true. We've been conditioned that way that women don't do those things.
Mhm.
Women need to jump in and say, oh, yes, we do. It's also a niche category, a niche inside of another niche. And like we were talking about, it's incredibly complex. And I think it's easy to get overwhelmed because, I mean, I wasn't overwhelmed when I started, but then when I started doing research and writing the story and realizing, oh my gosh, this is a lot of information and you have to take in a lot of information. And I think that's maybe some writers don't want to, I don't want to say not work that hard, but it's like they want to have more fun when they're writing. And me, I'm so cerebral that it's like, ooh, research, ooh, I get to read a lot of stuff. Ooh, I get to think about really hard concepts and break my brain a little. And so I guess it depends on you're how you approach your writing. Are you there to tell a story and have fun, or are you just overwhelmed with details like me? It's like I have to know all of this stuff. So also there's the science of the concept of time travel, and it's contentious and people argue about it in the scientific community about what's true and what's not true. It's kind of can be a minefield, but I liked the possibilities that I had with it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was really fun and interesting.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of opportunity for, there to be plot holes that you have to explain certain concepts. Yeah, definitely.
All right. What's unique about your book is that you go back millions of years. What made you choose the Jurassic period?
Um, Maybe that was just kind of a knee-jerk reaction, to um, well, I'm going to go back where the dinosaurs are. Okay, Jurassic, because I think most people, when they think of dinosaurs, that's the first thing they think of. And so that was the first thing I thought of. Because of Jurassic Park, I think
Mhm.
largely it's what brought
Mhm.
that into the public consciousness. Um, and I'm not sure there was any other reason for Jurassic other than had already committed to it, maybe, and had already done research.
Mhm.
Um, and of course, you want an era when you can have some cool dinosaurs. And
Yeah.
some eras were just like a lot of bugs and, although that might be fun too. Maybe I'll do that in a sequel. Yeah,
Ooh, a
so I think
sequel would be great. I'd love a sequel.
yeah.
Yeah, and so you connected with Jurassic before you found out that the T-Rex was not in the Jurassic, right?
Oh yeah, like
Yeah.
most everybody, unless you're a geek about it and you're into that, you don't know that. It's not usually general knowledge, but they took creative license with the movies. But then once I started doing research, I'm like, oh God, there weren't any T-Rexes in there. They were in the movie. The Velociraptor and also the feather thing. It's like they didn't show them with feathers, and now we know they have feathers, and there's all kinds of stuff like that. Of course, they didn't know that then, but
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
did know that T-Rexes weren't in there.
So,
Creative
what
work.
aspects of time travel are the most important or interesting to explore? Were there any specific messages or issues that you wanted readers to grapple with when you wrote Pitfalls?
I think I want, I always do this. I want my characters to have a huge collection of obstacles. I mean, I torture my characters, I just do, but I find it more entertaining. And of course, I know they're going to be okay. So I throw lots of obstacles in front of them. And so for Pitfall, well, the Jurassic period, that was one obstacle. And they knew that the only way to get back home was to use this time travel mechanism, which they didn't even understand. The other obstacle was like the machinations of other people in the story who had their own agenda. And then the environment itself was huge because, as far as an obstacle, because there were all these mysterious, deadly creatures running around that, of course, humans have not had any actual experience with. And so that's frightening. And then they had to also make sure they had what they needed for survival, food, water, shelter, warmth. And so that was a big one for them too. And I wanted to show that um, even problems like that could be solved if you used your brain and kept trying until you got it right. But that's the sort of thematic underpinnings to all my writing is I believe that every problem has a solution. So I throw them lots of problems and I watch them get out of it. So in Pitfall, I was I was able to let the characters grow in a way and evolve in a way that was not the the usual ways. And it explored the idea that just because someone isn't literate, that doesn't mean they're not smart. And I hope that maybe it might inspire those who have reading challenges to, push through with more confidence.
Right. Okay. It seems like you really enjoy speculative fiction as a subgenre for you. What is your favorite trope or subgenre to write? Both of you ladies.
Is that for me?
Mhm.
Both of you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. In general, well, speculative fiction is my favorite. Speculative in general is an umbrella term. It gives you all that leeway we were talking about to then more than standard genres do. Like I mentioned, like I was when I was working on New Harbor Witches, which by the way has a little time travel in the second one that those characters from Pitfall uh, are in the story. And so there's a little bit of time travel in the second one. There's going to be even more in the third one. So anyway, when I was working on the New Harbor Witches books, well, the first one, whenever my characters would inevitably get into that situation where it's like, oh, they're in a pickle, what the hell, and I would think, how the hell am I going to get them out of this? And like I said before, it was like magic. So speculative fiction is something I really enjoy because you've got leeway. Even if it's not magic, you've got leeway because you're making a lot of stuff up. It gives you more options. And I also like that about, I really, for a while now, been drawn to apocalyptic fiction. It's really visceral and it, the situations are always kind of an ultimate challenge for any human that's in that situation because they're surviving an overwhelming situation. And since my books are woman centered, I wanted to press the point that women can handle themselves in tough situations while still maintaining their humanity. And I think that's missing from that apocalyptic genre a lot because it's largely I mean, it's largely written by men and white straight men, and so I wanted to do something different with that. It's like, here's a woman doing apocalyptic fiction, and what that would be like, and so I rather than focus on a 5 pages about how to use an M4, or how many people you could kill that day. um, I think that the woman's sensibility is a natural part of who we are, and I wanted them doing the right things, being ethical, and I didn't want them to have any of that macho bullshit. So I hope that answered the question. That's why I like those
Yeah.
speculative fiction.
I think
Okay.
for me, it's a toss up between speculative and paranormal. I like both equally.
Some I like too, which is
Unfortunately, the ones that sell the best are contemporary romance. So, I write contemporary romance, but I like to write what I call romash, which is romance mashed with paranormal and speculative, which is, I suspect, what you do too, is you do a speculative fiction, but you add romance to it, which to me is the best of all worlds. But yeah, Allie and I have talked about this before. We love paranormal, we love speculative,
Yeah.
um, and she's the same as me. They're more fun to write, right? Right, Allie?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. On the Ink scale, where would you say that you place most of your books, Kelly?
well, I go through a lot of angst in my own head, and so I tend to use my characters to work that out through them, vicariously. Um, uh, Mainly, I want to answer the question, where does the angst go? Does it go to I'm helpless, or does it go to I got this? And my goal is always to have characters who can at some point in the story say, I got this. So the angst kind of leads them to that. So I don't spend a lot of time on the angst because I want them to my writing is fast paced, and so my characters need to spend most of their story time finding solutions to the problem rather than worrying about the problem. So it kind of doesn't get in there very often, except just periodically thoughts and things like that. But it's not a major part of the story. I think many women have been brainwashed that they're the weaker gender, and I believe the opposite's true. So I want to focus most of my time on, yeah, you feel this way and this hurts or this is disturbing, but what are you going to do about it? So it's an empowerment thing. So I don't have a shit ton of angst, I don't think. It's mostly angst, and then this is what I'm going to do about it.
Yeah, it seems like, at least from the novels I've read, is that they're fast paced, so you have obstacles, but you don't have I don't remember you having a lot of stupid, like, misunderstanding angst, that kind of stuff, like relationship angst. You don't really focus on that. It's more the story and the plot that moves quickly and fast and twists and turns. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
What advice would you give new unpublished authors just starting out? And like, what would you do differently, if anything?
My number one piece of advice is usually don't fall in love with your words, fall in love with your craft. Um, yeah, learn how to write well, read only good writers, do whatever else. There's a great community for writers everywhere, including Facebook and everywhere else. Um, join writers groups, start your own writers group, get uh, a subscription to writing magazines. I did that. I didn't have that community when I started out. Um, Back then, it was like 89 when I started, and there weren't any things like that. So I went to college, for a writing degree. I went I started a writers group several times, and I was members of other writing groups, and I had magazine subscriptions, and I read good writers, and I just kept writing and letting all of that stuff inside. So I think that now writers have, it's a lot easier for writers to get information and education. So take advantage of it, do all of that stuff, and then whatever else that helps you. That garbage in, garbage out thing, I'm just like, my wife was reading something, I don't know. She's an avid reader. She's read tens of thousands of books, and she reads really fast, but so she'll inevitably come across something maybe not that great, but she'll go ahead and read it because she can read it so fast. And I kept saying, don't read that. And she's, why? It doesn't matter. I know that this part's bad, and I know it's not written all that well. I'm like, because garbage in, garbage out. You're training your brain that this is what writing is. So read good writers, fill the well with good writers. So the second thing would be to always write what compels you, what you're interested in. And because if you're not interested in the story, your reader won't be interested in the story. They can tell if you're not passionate about a subject, and it has a way of putting them off. So, be true to that. Yes.
Would you have done anything differently?
I think I would have to think about that. Sometimes I think there was no other way really of doing it back then when I started, other than what I already did. I think I would have just stayed with, I think one small thing I did was a lot of times I would write for a market instead of what was calling to me. It's like, no, but I have to write this because this is what's popular. And then as I got older, I just got to a point where it's like, no, you know what? I'm going to write what I want to write. I'm going to write the story I want to write and how I want to write it. And there will be people out there who want to read it. I had to stop thinking in terms of money and thinking in terms of the craft and what I wanted to do, because it was sucking the joy out of me.
Mm.
And I know that's not probably a popular thing to say, but I think it's really important. We've got this need to write, and we ought to be writing what we want. Just like if a painter's standing in front of a canvas painting, you never see somebody come up behind them and say, oh, no, use the burnt sienna for that. Don't use that color. It's like that would seem absurd. And yet it seems like that happens in the writing communities. I mean, across the board, mainstream and everything.
Mhm.
It's like there's this voice in the void telling them what they should write. And I think overall, just write what you want to write what feels good, write what calls to you. And there will be readers who want to read that, but you're being true to yourself, and you're producing a better product because you're more enthusiastic about it. So you're more aware of what you're writing. And I think that's always a good way to go. So that may have been something I would have changed earlier than I did. So now that's what I'm doing.
Good.
Annette, do you have anything to add to that?
No, no, I agree in many
Oh.
ways, and yeah, I've come to in my old age say I'm going to write what I like writing, and
Yeah.
if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, okay.
Now that's not a bad
Yeah.
thing. Just, be true to yourself. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, you told us a little bit about your writing experience. What is the most challenging part of writing for you?
The most challenging part of writing a novel is writing the novel. No, that's not.
I was like, can you expand on that?
No. Yes. So the early stages, I think, are the hardest, but the further along I go, the more I start to enjoy it. And what I do, I usually start with interpretive dance. No, I start with an idea. It could be a scene, a bit of dialogue, or a premise, and then I'll expand that. Like often it's just like you take a sentence and you make it a paragraph, and you take the paragraph and you make it a page, and sometimes that works, sometimes that you just go all over the place, or I do. But I do a lot of free writing at the beginning, writing to myself, like, well, I want to do this, but how am I going to do that? But that's not going to work because of this. Oh, I have an idea. No, that won't work. And that's what my free writing is, until I start going, oh, okay, I got that figured out. And then I delete that part. And then I got this part figured out and I delete that part. And then I end up with kind of a summary of where I'm going. But it's usually just the first 5 or 10 chapters, because as I get like maybe to chapter 8, I might go, wait, that won't work with chapter 2. And so then I have to go back and do that. So I kind of refine those first few chapters until I know the trajectory is going right and it seems like that's going to work. And then I will let the organic process take over, and I will just let the characters talk. Like sometimes it's dialogue, sometimes I might write, you know, I don't know, lots of pages of dialogue, because the characters will start talking as you go and you're doing a dialogue, and
Mhm.
they'll tell you things and you realize, oh, well, hey, I didn't think about that, but that's good. And of course, it's coming out of your own brain, but because you're working through the characters, it's like it's them. Um, yeah, that's usually it.
Okay. So, what kinds of conflicts and complications are your favorite to write about?
Well, since I write femfic, I want to portray the strength of women, because I think we're underestimated, and sometimes we underestimate ourselves. So the conflicts and complications are always about that character, digging down deep to find, different aspects of themselves that are good, like courage or resilience or something like that. And then finding a way to solve the problem that's confronting them in the story. So those conflicts are always the thing that challenges, like, what they believe or what they need, or any number of things that we deal with as humans. It's just a human nature thing, and I just throw whatever that is for that type of character. Somebody that might have abandonment issues, then I will throw a challenge like that with them about that, to show them that it's not always abandonment or something like that. So it's really a psychological. I choose it according to like who the character is, and then I throw those things in front of them and make them figure it out, basically.
Okay. Well, I know you told us earlier that you did like 1,000 pages of research for Pitfall on the Jurassic. Is that typical for you to do that much research for a book,
No, it
or
does
was it
depend on the
unusual?
well, it does depend on the book, but like, me and my fact-based fiction, it's like I always check things. Even if I know a lot about a subject, I'll verify that what I think I know is accurate. It depends on the novel. Some of them can be extensive, like Pitfall was, and some of them are fairly limited. It's like I'm writing about something I already know about, and I already know the facts of, and so I don't have to do as much research. But I'll look up the name of something to make sure I'm spelling it right. I'll look up, what's the history
Okay.
of that thing, so that in case I've gotten something that's not quite accurate, I'm always watching for that. But yeah, it depends on what type of book it is. Yeah.
Mhm. What about your personal experiences? Are a lot? Do you have how much of those personal experiences are part of your books?
Well, quite a few. Um, Although, just to be clear, I've never been to the Jurassic period. Uh, so sometimes you do have to extrapolate. um, I think most writers do write about things familiar to them, and they probably write a little of themselves. It's kind of unavoidable, I think. I'm always trying to expand my horizons with that. I'm an autodidact, and so I am constantly learning and constantly researching and constantly being interested in new information. And so I like to put that in my books. It's like I find something interesting, I go, ooh, that would work well in a book. I should put that in a book. So I've got a huge tidbit file on Scrivener. I will watch lots of YouTube and read articles, and that nonfiction I use as a springboard, and I can take those facts and funnel them into a story. But I've used almost all of my experiences in my books. I mean, that's the richest source usually to pull from. You already know it, you lived it, and you can, you know, but I do that even though some readers don't think it's real. You know, when you use your own experiences. There was this one reviewer that said that a certain event in Armchair Detective wasn't realistic. And that particular event actually happened to me. So, you know, you're not going to please everyone, even if what you're writing is true. And it's strange that sometimes you have to include fictional bits to make the truth sound more true, but that's kind of the nature of it too. So yeah, I do put a lot of myself in there, even though some people might read that part and go, that could never happen. I'm like, yeah, can't, because it did.
All right. What kind of challenges, if any, did you have in including romance in your spec fiction?
Well, relationships and human nature, I think, are the same, no matter what the setting might be. It's just that if there's a velociraptor chasing you, it's not the right moment to throw down and do the nasty. So I think you have to know where to put those scenes. They're a little harder, you know, to find, because you have to find um, you know, there's a natural ebb and flow to every story. So you have to put those diversions like sex and romance and other things in the ebb parts of the story. So you just have to locate where all those are and figure out, okay, is this where I can put it? And sometimes that's a real challenge, more so than it would be in, you know, the standard fiction or romance fiction, because romance, you know, pretty much put it anywhere. But it's a little bit of a challenge, but not enough to be a big problem, really. I've had bigger problems than that, so I don't
Yeah.
think it's really a problem.
You know, when you were talking about your process and how you do things, it was interesting. I couldn't really pin whether you're a pantser or a plotter, but
I know why.
you're not really a combo. But what would you say you are? Are you a pantser or a plotter?
I'm both. That's probably why you couldn't like I'm both. Um, you know, every novel's going to be different, but um, mostly because the characters in the story are different. But um, I think in general, the planning part of it comes in, like I had said earlier, the planning is the usually the first 10 chapters where I'm trying to figure everything out. Where what the trajectory is for the story and making sure it all flows logically. Um, and then, you know, I just build on that point and let the characters kind of take over after that. So at that point, it becomes more organic. And so that part is the pantser part. And there'll inevitably be happy accidents, you know, that happen where it's like, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. And oh, that works though. So then I fill out everything with prose. But um, there's a lot of going back and forth, which is kind of not I don't know that you would consider that a planner. It's more like a pantser. It's like I go back and forth to update earlier parts of the story that don't match what has organically developed later in the story. And so um, I don't think I could write a book that didn't have both planning and pantsing. I think it's kind of, you have to do both. I don't know. Everybody's probably not the same that way, but that's how I do it.
Hmm.
Okay. Annette, anything you want to add to that?
No, everybody knows I'm a pantser all the way. I do no plotting at all.
Total panister. All
Um,
right. So now the favorite question. Do you have a current work in progress? This is for both of y'all.
Do I mean?
Kelly?
yeah, Kelly, yeah, let's hear about what you're working on.
Uh, well, honestly, right now I am mostly working on updating my catalog and organizing and deleting files. I've got it all down to like 5 million files on my hard drive. So I'm not kidding. That's a whole other story, but I'm
Um,
working on it. It's almost in a really good space. But I go back and forth between doing that stuff. But I wanted to get all of that done finally so I could just stop thinking about updating the books and stop thinking about the files and just focus on writing. And so when I'm not doing that, I've been working on the next in the Snug Haven series that's had Juvie and All Bets Are Off, and then the newest one, um, All the Deep Places. I have a lot of titles. All the Deep Places, and then right now, so I'm working on that next one called All the Iron Horses. And I'm also working on the second one in the Roma, the Rikers, and the Rez series. And the first one of those was Indigenous Blood. And so I'm working on the second one of that. I don't have a name for it. And then, the lists of other things, other ideas and book ideas and notes that it's like, oh yeah, at some point I'm going to write all of those too. And the list just keeps getting longer, and I need to be immortal apparently to get it all done. And I'm also interested in any cloning technology, if any of you know where I can get cloning technology, because I could get all that shit done if I could clone myself.
So,
Yeah.
so do you work on multiple books at the same time?
I do sometimes. Sometimes I work on, sometimes I find nowadays that once I figure out which one I'm really working on that's moving and it's got some locomotion to it, then I'll exclusively focus on that. I like to give them a chance to say which one wants to be written first. And it's the one that's coming out the best, that's the least amount of struggle. And that's the one I'll focus on. And then I will focus on that one. And yeah, that was the question, right?
No?
Okay. What
uh,
was the question?
sadly, no, I mean, a few months ago, I started The Pet Detective. I don't even think I have 1,000 words on that. Um, I've tossed around thoughts about writing a book about a character who has the where you can't recognize faces.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Very
thought that would
Spartan.
be interesting. And then there's another interesting thing which you'll appreciate with time travel, if you're going to write another time travel, is there's this young woman that they're researching who they consider does mental time travel. She has hyperthymesia,
Oh.
which is a condition where you have just beyond remarkable ability to remember past events and also to do a little bit of what might happen in the future. So they're calling that mental time travel because she can actually, in remarkable detail, remember a specific event or time, or she can remember all of her toys that she ever received and who she received them from and when she, just in remarkable detail. And then and I guess that they'll have to wait and see whether some of her sort of future travel in her mind, I guess, of what's going to happen in the future comes to pass to see, can you really mentally time travel? I thought that was just kind of fascinating. I thought,
Well, damn, now I can't write that one.
No.
no, go ahead, because who knows? I mean, it really honestly all depends on, how well is my time travel novel going to do? Is it enough to say, do I just hang out my hat and just say, I'm done. Maybe I'll just continue to write short stories that are little extra chapters. I do have a collection of shorts that are what I call cherry on the top that's going to be coming out. And those are just all short stories that are based on the books with the characters so that you can get a little bit more. But other than that, I've been just terrible. And unless Allie does what she usually does to get me out of my slump and forces me to write something because she starts writing a book that we have to write together, and then that forces me to write. I don't know. I don't know if I have another book. I don't know if I have another book in me or not, to be honest.
Well, you do, and I'll have to come up with something to challenge you.
Oh God, I knew you were going to do that. All right. Anything else that you would like to share, Kelly, or add that you want readers to know about you, your books, etc.?
I think probably everybody knows just about enough.
Okay. All right.
I think that's good.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate having you. Like I said before we even started this, I'm a big fan of your books. I couldn't remember what was the first book that I read, and you told me Rain Falls, which is a fabulous book. If those of you want to check Kelly's work out, she's very funny. Her characters are very endearing. They are fast paced. They keep your interest. Nothing lagging about her books. So I think you'd really enjoy that. So don't forget to check out our YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out Kelly's books and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Next month, we're going to be talking about generational romance. Once again, thank you, Kelly.
Thank you for having me.